This is where the fun begins.
General Kenobi!
Hello everyone and welcome back to Jedi Knights, the official Star Wars podcast of JoyClicks. I'm your host, Christian Buckley, here with my Chewie, Mike Connors, for episode 56, 10 away from the big one.
Only 10 away. I was thinking about this earlier. Do you think we've done more episodes remotely than we did in person?
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like we've gotten to that point.
We have. Here's the thing. We've definitely recorded more episodes remotely, because remember last season when we did, or not last season, but when we did season 1 of Mando interview, that was same recording day, but we did 2 episodes. We did the breakout for Mando first, and then Friday was the episode for whatever we were reviewing for the week. But,
right. Much simpler times, I guess.
Yeah. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, man. I think I was talking to you a little bit about this before we started recording, but I was playing some Lego Star Wars earlier. Finished. I'm kind of just trying to go through in order, so I finished Attack of the Clones. Most of it was on Geonosis. Wasn't that fun, honestly? But, I remember the rest of it being good.
Yeah, I remember hating the Droid Factory.
That was horrible. I really did that today. So far episode 3 is fun, and episode 1 is fun too. So
nice. Well,
how are you?
I'm doing all right. I just got a couple Star Wars games to stream for November.
Nice.
Doing Shadows of the Empire and Battlefront 2 Classic on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ChrisMBuckley.
Cool.
Gonna do that at some point this month. But we're doing something different with the episode release this week and probably for the rest of the year, so might as well lead with that. For the YouTube version, we record these on Monday. Because Mandalorian episodes drop on Friday, we figured, hey, we record early enough in the day on Monday that whatever post-production stuff has to be done on my end, which thanks to how we record is not a ton, we can get the episode up. So we're closer to the release of the Mando episode. So for now, until the rest of the year, new episodes of Jedi Knights posting Monday nights. Still going to do live premieres. Maybe we'll do a couple live episodes. We'll see what happens. But yeah. Monday
nights. I think this is it's a beginning of a new era for Jedi Knights, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think we did our Mando reviews last year. The breakout ones were still posted on Mondays, so familiar territory, but now we're going all in.
Yeah, all in on the Monday schedule, I guess.
Yeah.
It may actually benefit us if there is any late breaking news. We don't look like we're behind.
Exactly. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Also, because in the US at least, this is posting Monday night, tomorrow's voting day, so if you're registered to vote, might as well go vote, because it's important. It's very important.
I voted by mail, but if you haven't voted, go vote in person if you can.
Yeah. I did the drop off that a few days ago, done by City Hall.
So easy, man.
Mm-hmm.
We should have done that many election cycles ago.
Yeah. But with that being said, why don't we get to some Star Wars talk? Kicking off with the Jedi Archives, our segment where we pull from the sacred texts of Wikipedia every week to educate each other.
Whenever you say sacred texts, I always think of Luke Skywalker in Episode 8 and the Jedi books and everything. That's what I imagine Wikipedia being.
Yeah, that's the server of Wikipedia. It's just that tree with all the books inside of it.
That's right. Yeah, actually, the director's cut, they walk into the tree and it's just a big server room.
Yeah. Mike, why don't you kick us off this week? What's your pick? What's your poll? What are you going to educate us on in the world of Star Wars?
So I don't know if I've picked this before. I may have. I don't think so. I'm picking a character whose name is Kalo Nord.
Okay.
He's a human male, an infamous bounty hunter who lived during the Jedi Civil War. If you played Knights of the Old Republic, you're definitely familiar with this character. I picked him because we will get to it later on in the episode. This week's Mandalorian episode seemed to be very much heavily inspired by Knights of the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
at one point you do to go to Tatooine and encounter a sort of creature that we'll talk about later, that was visible in and very focal in this new episode of The Mandalorian. Right after you defeat this creature in the game, you get sort of just like attacked and ambushed by this guy, and you have to kill him. So that's kind of just what sort of inspired me to pick him. So yeah, he's just a bounty hunter. He's a pretty bad guy, and yeah. So there you go.
Very cool. Thank you. I did not know that. I did see a lot of people hyping up the parallels between that mission, but
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Interesting to know that there was a third party involved. Just some dude waiting.
Exactly. We'll get to it.
I also picked a character from a video game, which I believe this character is not canon anymore, but it's a character I've heard a lot about before. Dash Rendar.
All right. Yeah, there you go.
Dash Rendar was a human male smuggler and freelancer born into a wealthy Corellian family during the final years of the Galactic Republic. He chose to pursue a career as an officer in the Imperial Navy rather than joining the family shipping business, and basically went into some scuttlebuds, some fights in bars in the Star Wars universe, and became,
of course, yeah,
Han Solo essentially.
Yeah. What games was he in?
I know he is in Shadows of the Empire, which is why it was on top of the brain since I just bought that. But he was also in the novel Shadows of the Empire, and as I'm slightly aware, in the 90s, Shadows of the Empire was like a multimedia sort of thing to like tell stories, kind of like how High Republic is going to be, to a certain extent. And he was a focal point in that entire run. So
cool. I mean, so he's Corellian.
Yeah, he's Corellian ex-Imperial officer.
So it's like literally a carbon copy, but okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good pick.
Thanks. Yeah. He looks pretty much standard white dude in a space movie that you'd expect.
So Han Solo.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that does it for the Jedi Archives this week. 2 video game polls. 1, so a nice little tease.
Yeah, we don't talk about these at all. It's always a surprise when we pull them on air. So
yeah. I'm waiting for the day that we have the same one.
Yeah, it'll happen one day.
It will.
I'm sure of it. The way our brain wavelengths will just connect. And they already have in the past.
Force dyad right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to talk more about John Boyega?
I would want nothing less.
Okay. So recently, again, following up on
nothing more than that. Whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean.
Following up on a few notable discussion points we've had over the past 6 months or so about John Boyega when it comes to Star Wars. Obviously, probably in I think it was June or July, there was his very notable shared stance and involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement that was basically taking control of the entire news cycle. Led him to giving interviews and talking about his experience in Star Wars, which he was very transparent about in a GQ interview, which we discussed in August, I think, is when that was around.
Yeah, it was around then.
Yeah. Then recently, I think last week even, we talked about how in an interview with, I think, Yahoo, he said that he'd be open to returning to Finn. And that
was last week, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been it continues. Sorry, I didn't mean to...
Oh no, so I was gonna say we were wondering if there was some discussion that went down, or if it was just him processing and moving on and trying to recalculate what is the right move for him. But this week we have an update via an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, again for the same show he was talking about before. He said in response to his GQ interview that was tearing down the production of Star Wars when it came to his role, he said, quote, it was a very honest and very transparent conversation. that he had with a Disney executive. There was a lot of explaining on their end in terms of the way they saw things. They gave me a chance also to explain what my experience was like. I'd hoped that me being so open with my career at this stage would help the next man, the guy that wants to be the assistant DOP, the guy that wants to be a producer. I hope that the conversation is not such a taboo or elephant in the room now because someone just came and said it. So
honestly, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you don't like to see the fact that this, like, he spoke out for a reason. I think those are like really horrible reasons, and like, I'm like glad that he spoke out about them. But it's good to know that like at least Disney didn't brush it off.
Yeah.
At least they made space for him to sort of just like say what he had to say to them, to their face, because maybe he felt like he couldn't before. And what he has to say here about like, you know, he wants to be open so he can sort of like chart a path for people behind him, I think is really brave. And like, you know, the person who wants to be the assistant DOP like probably doesn't have the same amount of clout as like John Boyega does. So when you have somebody that high up, you know, making those points and speaking out, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I recommend reading the entire Hollywood Reporter interview because he talked about sort of how he used his platform and the clout he gained from Star Wars to start his own production company, which is producing non-English speaking films for Netflix.
That's cool.
A lot of productions in like East Africa and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting interview. In terms of what it means for him in Star Wars, I think... obviously, we noted last week that his tone changed. So I would like to think, based on the way we've seen him speak this year and how genuine it feels every time he talks about anything, that like he's probably satisfied with the conversation, you know, and he's probably happy that Disney is taking steps to listen and act on that. And because last week he was like, hey, if the story's there, maybe we visit Finn again. Like, it makes me think that he walked away hopeful compared to the really terrible dish that he was dealt since, what, like 2016, 2017? Honestly, since the reveal, ever since there was that whole, like, all black Stormtrooper thing.
Yeah, ever since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, I don't know, it's just good to see that they're, like, at least being open with him and letting him say what he has to say. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, so maybe we see something from this in the future. In the meantime, John Boyega is very busy. So,
you know, I do want to say that like I feel like the original thing that he had, the original GQ article, it wasn't like, I don't think he was trying to like ruin his relationship with Disney in any way. I think he was trying to like stay amicable, but just like calling out like the stuff that they did wrong. And I think that they obviously are keeping like an open mind about it, which is good. Just wanted to make that point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because again, we're not in Hollywood, but there is like a pressure, you know, to like not not speak ill of the productions you're on. So yeah. I think that's probably why there was that read. But yeah, I'm glad that he's continuing to be very vocal about it, and he should be.
Definitely.
Speaking of more, EA Star Wars. Best transition I could do.
That's good. Yeah.
So recently, the newest addition to the world of Star Wars video games is Star Wars Squadrons, the dogfighting game from EA Motive, the studio that did support work on Star Wars Battlefront 2. They spearhead this new $40 Star Wars X-Wing TIE Fighter experience, which seems to be received mixed to positive. I still have not picked it up. I don't think Mike has either.
Have not.
But what's interesting is that thanks to a job listing, we know that EA Motive is already working on their next Star Wars project.
That's interesting. Does the job listing have any details, or?
So there were two job listings that appeared, both of them for EA Motive. One was in relation to the IP of Star Wars. The other one was for a new original IP from EA Motive. Which, first off, in terms of like a studio perspective, I think it's interesting because EA Motive, as far as I'm aware, or at least as long as I've been aware of that studio, I just knew that they did support work for Battlefront. So like seeing them branch out and start being able to make more stuff like Squadrons, another Star Wars game, and then a new IP, that's cool, considering EA has a history of like shutting down studios, not like fostering growth for them.
Right, yeah. I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, EA just does such a wide range of things that
Mhm.
I wonder what sort of game this is going to be. I mean, they just came out with Squadrons, which definitely seems like like a B tier game compared to like the A tier game that a Fallen Order is. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So it makes me think like I don't know if they're trying to come up with another one of those, maybe like $40 less impactful games, or if this is like an IP that is going to be more feature length.
Mhm.
Who knows? I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think based on the scale of everything and the fact that they ship Squadrons, were like, we're not adding anything, and now there's news that they're already gonna go headfirst on a new Star Wars project. It makes me think it's probably a similar scale thing to Squadrons. And honestly, I kind of like that because the thing is, if we can get maybe yearly, obviously I don't think their game would be next year, but maybe there's another Star Wars game next year. Um, if we can get into a cycle of a Star Wars game a year, and next year we do have Lego Star Wars, so that would fill a void. That's not EA, but still new
Yeah.
content. But say come 2022, we get a presentation in like January. It's like the next step from EA Star Wars, thanks to Motive, it's a 7-hour Bad Batch first-person shooter campaign. Like that'd be sick,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so basically what you're saying is you think that like EA Motive are they're going to stick with these like smaller games, and maybe EA will give those feature length games to like a Respawn or something like that.
I would think so, because like if the opportunity is there for a studio to make solid games, and from everything I hear about Squadrons, it's like the gameplay's solid. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of the things surrounding it that people think may be lackluster or not enough. Like, if we can get them to make a really pretty looking 6-hour co-op first-person shooter campaign about the Bad Batch, or like we do Delta Squad, like I'd happily take that as opposed to nothing or waiting another 3 years for a Squadron sequel that's more fully fledged.
True. Yeah. I guess like they could work on like these smaller like just like whet the appetite kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, you get like the big hitters like the AAA games every like 4 years or so.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Honestly, any scenario where there's more Star Wars games is positive. It's a W in my book.
Yeah, because like think of it this way too. Like if we do stick with the small scale, if it is stuff that like hits like a 7 or an 8 on Metacritic, like think about the history of Star Wars games. How many out of the like hundreds of them are actually like that A tier we're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
we have like Force Unleashed, even at the time, was like a little grody. So like
Yeah, true.
if we can just get back to like a pace that's like, hey, if you didn't like the Star Wars game this year, maybe the one next year will be good for you. Like if we can get to that and EA Motive fills that role, that is good in my book.
Yeah, I don't mind having like, maybe some smaller games that are like less expensive and maybe just like don't have as much content,
Mm-hmm.
but that like I said, well, or like you said, sort of just like give people that sort of like taste until, every so often they come out with a big AAA game.
Mhm.
Which is probably the way that I'd want to see it done. Now, you said that you would like to see a Bad Batch sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
Are you set on that, or would you just want to see like something first person, or are you kind of just set on like the Bad Batch specifically?
Well, because what I'm thinking is that I'm trying to think of what EA Motive is comfortable with so far. So far, it's been flight stuff and support on Battlefront. So both of those are a first-person perspective. So I'm assuming we're going to stick with that trend of like first person. Okay, so what can we do with first person? I don't think a first-person Jedi game would work. So probably a trooper game. If we're making a show about the Bad Batch, might as well go all in and be like, hey, the Bad Batch video game, 6 to 8 hour campaign, you can play a co-op. That's it.
Yeah,
$40.
cool.
So
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have anything on the top of your head that you'd want to see them do for their next project?
Yo, man, I just want them to resurrect that Darth Maul game. That's what I want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would work for them, but go for it. I'd like to see you try.
Yeah, and apparently, thanks to that Force Unleashed rumor from last week, apparently EA doesn't have Star Wars fully on lock, which I guess makes sense. Traveler's Tales does Lego, that's not EA.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me wonder though, just because I assume that Traveler's Tales that was a contract that they must have struck way before Disney bought Star Wars, but I thought that EA and Disney pretty much had an exclusive deal. I didn't realize that I don't know. That's going back on news from last week, but
sure, yeah. Well, following up the news from last week though, Mando Monday once again. Today's Monday, so we got our Mando Monday stuff hot off the presses. This week, the standout at Build-A-Bear, you can make a teddy bear that has a Mando print on it, or you can just make the child.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. I haven't been to a Build-A-Bear in, let's say, 14 years probably. Maybe longer than that. I don't know how old I am.
Okay. I'm trying to think when the last time I was at a Build-A-Bear. It may have been more recent. I don't know if you have younger siblings, Christian, but my sister's younger than me, so.
My brother's 2 years younger than me, so no.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think the last time I went was before 2010.
Yeah.
If I find myself in a Build-A-Bear in the next 6 months, if they still have these on stock, I'll make the child. That's cute.
Yeah. Also, are Build-A-Bears even open right now?
That's a good question.
Just a thought. But yeah, it's really cute. I have to say, especially the child.
Oh yeah. Did you? I unfortunately there wasn't a stream this week. I thought we were gonna be doing streams every week for the news of Mando Monday, but
yeah,
the website just has some featured products. There's a couple Funko Pops. There's Mando on a Bantha. I like that one kind of. Again, lots of merch, some new T-shirts, a backpack. There's a Mudhorn beanie. So the sigil for Din Djarin and the child.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's $30 though. So
okay.
I don't know if I dropped out on a beanie. And yeah, a couple other figures. All the different lines. There's the vintage collection, the Kenner one, the Black Series. There's a bunch of stuff you can start to pre-order today. Are you going to pick up any of the Mando merch? I don't know if we talked about this at all last week.
So was there Black Series that dropped today, Christian?
There's, I think, on the featured products for November 2nd, there is a Black Series of Din Djarin and the child. But I don't think you can pre-order it.
I see. Okay. Well, I don't know why, for some reason, I don't know if I'm looking at the wrong thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super into anything that was shown today, to be quite honest. I was hoping that there was going to be a Black Series of Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
Where's that? I want that.
I bet that's wave 2. Because remember how when season 1 happened last year, they were like, oh, all the Baby Yoda merch is way later because we don't want to spoil anything.
Oh.
So we weren't even producing it, until after the show was halfway over. I think that might be what we're getting here. Probably the same with Ahsoka as well.
Probably. The thing is though, is I was just I was watching this week's episode and I was like, I want a Black Series figure of him.
Yeah, me too.
And then I was like, maybe it'll be this Mando Monday, and then no.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This today from my cursory scan of the website seems like it's just a direct follow up to last week. In terms of giving a little more details. So maybe next week we get details about Cobb Vanth or anything else.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I still kind of want those child Adidas. So
save up, bro.
They're only $90. I thought they were going to be ridiculously expensive, but
you should just go for them. I mean, when do they go on sale? Are they already on sale?
Wednesday, I think. So
Pre-order them, man. You got
I
it.
might. We're gonna see what happens. But yeah, I still don't own a Black Series Star Wars figure. I want a Din Djarin one to be my first, but man, I don't really like the one that is up today.
Is it the one where his face is? You can see his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of how that looks. Like, I know you can just keep the helmet on the whole time, but I'd just be thinking about it.
Yeah. Just like maybe just yeah. I don't know. I don't know if you could still buy like the carbonized version. Probably not.
Yeah, there were other ones I was looking at. Like, you can get the 4-inch vintage one. So I was thinking about maybe that because I have a tin somewhere in this house of a bunch of those 4-inch Star Wars figures from Revenge of the Sith days, but that one's cheaper too. So
why did they make Pedro Pascal's face so fat looking on this Black Series figure? If you look at it, it's pretty obviously.
So I saw somebody tweeting that sometimes when actors don't license out their likeness, that's why figures don't look the way they should. So the theory is that maybe Pedro Pascal didn't sign off with Hasbro, and that's why it kind of looks like him, but
it does definitely look like him, but
yeah.
It definitely also doesn't look like him at all.
His face is just very, very wide.
Yeah, it's too round. The thing is it makes me wonder. You wouldn't think that Disney would essentially force Pedro Pascal to do sign off for his likeness. Yeah,
I don't know.
You'd think that would be in his contract. You become the Mandalorian, we can use your face.
Yeah. So maybe it was just a weird thing with the mold. It could be that if it's not a contract thing, because I do think it's kind of unlikely that you sign on to be part of this mega franchise, and then you're like, nah, but my face, nah, not on the toys.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and also you can't tell me that somebody didn't look at this and say that looks bad, maybe the deadline was too soon.
Maybe. Well, speaking of Din Djarin, speaking of Cobb Vanth, why don't we talk about episode 9, chapter 9, excuse me, not episode 9.
No.
I gotta be very clear with this show when we're talking about episodes versus chapters.
That's right, yeah.
The Mandalorian, chapter 9, The Marshal.
Yes.
Before we continue, full spoilers are on the table for this episode, but before we get to full spoilers, one word, one sentence review, what do you think of the episode?
A great combination of nostalgia and new.
Okay. Very nice. I agree. I think it is the best of what I love about season 1. So
those are some pretty two glowing reviews of this before we dive deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I guess where do you want to start with this?
Why don't we just start at the start? Getting back into the world, diving in, seeing Mando and the child once again. I was very happy just from the second the show started up. I know there was that 2-minute recap, right, of the entire first season.
Did you watch that at all? I'm just curious.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it too. It made me realize that not a lot happened in the first season. Mm-hmm. Story wise,
mm-hmm.
It was pretty slow.
Yeah. But then when we get to current timeline, we see Mando and the child strolling through these back alleys trying to find this confidant or something, some mark that Mando knows that he has info on where another Mandalorian is.
Yeah, and just from the outset of this,
mm-hmm.
I was just immediately already back into the Mandalorian world. Just the shot of Din and the child walking down that road, and the music is so Mandalorian, and
mm-hmm.
they just look so cool, and Baby Yoda's so freaking cute, and it's just all there from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm still blown away by how adorable the child is, because there was a shot of him, like one of the first few shots. Like I've been seeing this thing every week when I'm looking at these like merch things, right? But then I just they cut to like a shot of him for a second, and he just like looks over at something, and I was like, ha! Like I made a sound. I was like, eh. He's cute.
Literally, like, what do you think? I guess like this is just sort of a tangent, but like, what do you think makes him so cute? Like, he's just so adorable.
I think it's the fact that it looks like it's. I mean, it is real. So like, it's the fact that it's a puppet and it's like actually there and has like a texture to it. Also, the eyes.
The eyes, definitely, and the big ears.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so freaking cute.
Yeah, that entire opening I thought was really good, and it was like a nice slow build to a conflict that it kind of reminded me of how we're introduced to Mando in episode 1 with the bar, you know? Just strolls up to this place, causes some mayhem, walks out with what he needs.
Totally, but even in a way, I felt like it was like more Star Warsy.
Sure.
Maybe it's just like, you know, it just the attention to detail, like from the very beginning, like they're walking down the road in this like weird planet, and like the graffiti, like they make a point to show the graffiti, and it feels like lived in, and like it's just very cool. You know, he gets greeted by like this Twi'lek at the door to this club, and he walks in, there are like 2 Gamorreans fighting, and like it's just like stuff like that really just like throws you right into the world. Like I just felt like I was walking into like this like weird alien bar fighting ring with like the Mandalorian. It was very cool. Like the way that the show sort of like puts across the screen like this is Star Wars is like, maybe it's just this episode. It was very impactful for me.
Yeah, well said. I agree wholeheartedly. Like I think it's a very strong intro. Also, when I saw, this is worth noting too, because the thing is, the way the episode's released, they drop at like 3 a.m. East Coast, and I have to go most of my Friday not opening Twitter until I can watch the episode. And I like watching it at night. I didn't this last week because I had something in the afternoon, but I had Twitter open for half a second, and I saw one tweet, of course, about the episode, and I saw, oh, what a great cameo, and then I saw, obviously, comparisons that we'll get to later, but when we were introduced to this mobster guy, I was like, the voice sounds familiar. This is probably the cameo. It's like it's an alien in makeup who's like really has a lot of dialogue. So this is probably that cameo. So I was like mostly focused on just trying to figure out who it was and not paying attention wholly to like what he was saying.
Yeah.
Turns out it was John Leguizamo.
I you know, you gotta love when there's, you know, like New York aliens in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That
was funny.
It's like Bill Burr in the first season. He's got like this Boston accent.
Yeah.
Now we got this one-eyed alien with a New York accent. So
yeah. But yeah, overall, strong intro, I thought.
Definitely. I want to make one notice here. The Gamorreans, when they were fighting with like these axes, and every single time that they would like hit one another, you could see this sort of like just like I don't it seemed like a force field sort of just like clashing on one another, and that's from Knights of the Old Republic, the terrace dueling arenas. Interesting stuff.
Nice. I think it definitely stood out to me. I was trying to think of like where else I saw them, because I haven't played KOTOR, but were there enemies in Fallen Order? Like I remember like a vibro axe. Is that a term?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now. Vibro axe is a term. I know like the Mandalorian has like a vibro sword, like a vibro knife.
Okay.
And those I think originate from Knights of the Old Republic. They're weapons, like there are vibro swords, there are vibro knives, there are all that kind of stuff in Knights of the Old Republic, and it's just interesting to see that technology being sort of like used in this episode, because in the terrorist fighting arenas, it basically like made it so the other person didn't kill another.
Oh, Solo. Didn't Dryden Voss have the knuckles with the knives?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was also a vibro knife, if I'm not to be mistaken.
Cool. And yeah, after that intro, we dive into the bulk of the episode. John Leguizamo says, "Hey, Tatooine, there's a Mandalorian there." Gets hung out in the streets.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, Mando's still got some darkness in him.
I think Mandalorian says like, "You won't die by my hands."
Yeah.
Right. And then, yep.
So were those like Jawa or something, or were they like just some other alien with like red eyes?
I don't know. I don't think they were Jawas. They kind of. It seemed like they could only be in the dark, right?
Yeah.
They seemed like dog adjacent to me.
Yeah. Regardless, Mando ships off to Tatooine, and
right back to Tatooine, baby.
Yeah. Meet the mechanic again. I see. The thing is, I was like, "Hey, it's her," and so like because I know we don't love her character in the episode she features in season 1 because like that episode is the weakest. But like her role in here, I was like, "Oh yeah, her, cool."
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. It was fine ultimately, but like right when I first saw her, I was like, "Oh, great!" Like, I just wasn't very hot on the character in the first season. I kind of thought it was like overdone, to be honest.
How did you feel about R5?
That was cool. That was cool. I was watching something, and apparently R5 was also in season 1, but just in the background. Just in the background.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but like right on the top of R5, there was like some scarring from episode 4 when like he busts his motivator.
That's funny.
Yeah, so you could see scarring on his top.
And yeah, so most of this episode, I will compare out the gate because the rest of the episode is pretty much that formula of the Mandalorian that I really like, and I think you do too because you love episode 4, chapter 4 so much. It's like the sort of samurai thing. It's the cowboy thing. It's like, hey, we go to this area, this village, they have a problem, we help them, and then we get rewarded from it, and then we move on our way. And like it's the exact same format I love about episode 4. It gives the room to have really cool action, a really cool set piece, really cool objective that we can get through completely, and also leave room for like character moments. So I really thought it was great. I thought Jon Favreau did a great job. First episode he's directed. Would love another one. So yeah, Mike, why don't you let us know who we meet here?
So we go to Mos Pelgo right after we meet with, I think her name's like Paliumoto or something like that, in her hangar bay. The Mandalorian goes to Mos Pelgo in search of this second Mandalorian who will help him bring the child back to his kind. And when he arrives in Mos Pelgo, he goes to a cantina, like you do, and eventually, as somebody who is wearing Mandalorian armor walks into the cantina, but it's not just any Mandalorian armor. It is the beat-up armor of Boba Fett. Yes, the Boba Fett. The bounty hunter Boba Fett, who was eaten by the Sarlacc in Star Wars Episode 6. But the person who's walking in the cantina does not seem like Boba Fett. The armor doesn't seem to really fit him that well. And we soon learn, because he takes off his helmet, that he's indeed not a Mandalorian. He is what the townspeople are calling the Marshal, sort of just like the protector of Mos Pelgo. He bought the armor off of some Jawas, and his name is Cobb Vanth. Now, Cobb Vanth was actually in the Aftermath series, I believe. So he has appeared in the canon before, but never has appeared on screen, and he's played by none other than Timothy Olyphant. So, yeah, what did you think about this?
We talk introductions. I loved his intro. Like,
yeah,
the standoff with like the hand on the gun when he walks in the bar, and then he's like, "Oh, we're cool, don't worry." And like, I love to, especially because like with season 1, and like I think this is just so strong in like following up on things from season 1 because like you can tell Mando feels like he should trust the guy when he's first like talking to him, and then like the second the helmet comes off, like twists. It's like, oh, okay, like
You could like almost see it in his body language, like
Yeah.
how the Mandalorian like changes.
Yeah, I love that. That was really really good. But yeah, their entire interaction, I really liked their back and forth. I hope we get to see more of him.
Me too.
Now, did you read the Aftermath series?
No, I never did. I just
Okay.
know like from after the fact.
Sure.
After this episode, I did some research, and I know
Mhm.
that he's from those books.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at one point it might have been one of those books because again, just from like knowing about their existence, did he find the armor in one of those books? Like, was it known that Cobb Vanth was a character that had the armor?
Yeah, I think it was known that he had Mandalorian armor. I don't
Okay.
think it was known that he had Boba's armor specifically.
Gotcha.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't watch the old. Didn't read the books, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I really liked him a lot, and I thought Timothy Olyphant fit into the Star Wars universe incredibly well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really interesting that like he really took like he really just fits in really well. And honestly, we need more gray-haired people in Star Wars.
Sure.
More gray-haired adult men.
It's been a while. Yeah, and also, maybe we come out swinging early. How in God's earth did they manage to take what his screen time was probably like less than 30 minutes? How did they manage in 30 minutes to make somebody who has a tie to the iconic look of Boba Fett cooler than Boba Fett?
Literally, they literally made a person who just like pretended to be Boba Fett cooler than the actual Boba Fett.
Yeah, I was
So,
impressed.
I don't know how they did it, but they did it. You're right.
Um,
But they're about to. The Mandalorian and Cobb Vanth are about to like face off until they're, something sort of interrupts.
yeah, that sort of triggers like an uneasy alliance because there's a crate dragon, right?
Yeah.
And this whole time I was thinking, I knew it wasn't because we were on Tatooine, but like every time they say crate dragon, I'm like crate, like the salt mine planet.
No.
Yeah, I wish, but yeah, it's basically if you've seen the episode of SpongeBob with the Alaskan bullworm,
Literally.
that's this. That's the episode.
It also reminds me of Dune.
Sure, yeah.
Like the sandworms in Dune.
Mhm.
A bit of a different. Like the sandworms in Dune don't specifically like try to like eat livestock, but yeah, similar sort of concept.
Space worms terrorizing a colony. Pretty cool.
Essentially, yeah.
Cool concept.
Very
You know?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I didn't know this at the time because I don't think we've really. When it attacked Mos Pelgo, it was sort of just like, what is that thing? But later on, when they sort of explain that it's like a crate dragon and everything, there's some pretty interesting connections to Knights of the Old Republic. I don't know if you want to get into them now, or if
Oh,
we
please.
just want to. Okay, so actually, it might be best to get to them in a bit.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, we like set up the conflict of everything. It's like, okay, Mando, it's you, it's Cobb, it is the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
I really liked just everything about the episode. I don't think there's anything I didn't like. I don't know if that's just the hype of me wanting the show to be back or what, but I thought we moved at a good pace. I really thought they introduced a lot of cool twists on things we're familiar with. Like, I'm really glad we got to see the Tusken Raiders humanize, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
for so long, they've just been the Sand People, and, like, that carries some connotations behind it, you know?
Oh yeah.
So seeing them be humanized, like, I liked that, you know? It was something new. It was, like, it still looked at them in their role in that world, where it's like, yes, they are very violent, but there's a common goal here, you know? So I really liked looking at Tatooine, which is like, oh, we're back on Tatooine again. Like, it brought a lot of new things to the screen, at least, regarding Tatooine. So I give it a lot of credit for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely did a lot to sort of just like expand the lore in a way.
Mhm.
Like we never got so much backstory about the Tusken Raiders before,
Hmm.
in something so mainstream, and I really like that too.
Hmm.
Where did the Mandalorian learn Tusken? He's like so good at it.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly well worn in his role, as a wanderer. So
Yeah, sure, but like that seems like a hard language to pick up.
yeah, probably. I don't know. That's. I wonder if there's a story there. There probably is. I bet that's a comic. you know.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
What did you
But
think? Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that they all end up sort of coming together and unifying in this one goal
Hmm.
to kill the Krayt Dragon.
Can we say slay the Crate Dragon because this is a dragon story?
Yes, it's yes, the people of Mos Pelgo, the Mandalorian, Cobb Vanth, and the Tusken Raiders team up to slay the Krayt Dragon.
Very nice. I was gonna ask you, as we're like learning about the history of this village and their relationship with the Tusken Raiders and the Krayt Dragon, what did you think of Cobb Vanth's like recounting of his story? Because I really liked it. I liked that it was his perspective and it was a shift in that way, and
Yeah,
it left things a little questionable, kind of, because like it's only his perspective, a certain point of view. It's like, did he actually run? Like, what? Like, did he steal that? Like, what actually went down? What do you think of that whole thing?
I mean, yeah, it's safe to be skeptical about something like that.
Yeah,
Like, he makes himself seem like a badass,
yeah.
like who's like totally justified.
Mhm.
And like we just don't know if that's like his character yet. Like, maybe he wasn't. Maybe that wasn't very altruistic of him. Like
Mhm.
he says that he gets the armor and he uses it to like save the city and stuff, but like we don't really know like what's been going on. And we also don't know like if, yeah, like you said, like if he escaped the way that he escaped.
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's just interesting to see that. I think it also does a lot to sort of like help those people who may not be as into Star Wars to sort of like place this in the timeline,
Mhm.
because we do see like the Death Star explode.
Yeah, that was
uh,
really cool.
it was really cool to see that from that perspective. Just like other like random people like watching it happen, and celebrating. Yeah, I just think that it helps because the Mandalorian's pretty popular now. It kind of helps like place it in the timeline for some people who may not be as into it as we are.
Yeah, good point. I'll add on. I would like to see that 2 to 3 minute sort of certain point of view esque narration and action from a lot of other supporting characters, because we didn't really get that at all in season one. But like, if we can at some point get like a Grief Karga thing where he's like sort of going through the motions of like what it was like meeting the client or something from season
Yeah.
one, like
Yeah.
that'd be super cool. I would love that.
Sure. I mean, I think that I hope that you're right. I hope that they sort of like replicate that through other characters and everything.
Yeah, because season one proved they have a really good ensemble of like really good characters. So I would love to see them utilize them more than they already do.
I agree.
Now, why don't we talk a little bit about the main action, the slaying of the Krayt Dragon?
Yes.
If we want to get real technical for a sec, I didn't even notice the transition to the full aspect ratio.
I didn't either.
So that means they did it perfectly.
They did
like,
they did it perfectly.
Mm,
No, continue. I'm sorry. I didn't.
no, that was really it. Like, on a film editing perspective, it's like, if you don't notice that, you did a great job. And I thought the transition out of it was really cool too, because it was like looking like back and like focusing on Mando sort of, so it was like a zoom in effect as they were going away.
Yeah,
But
I'd have
yeah.
to say that's the only time I noticed it was when it transitioned back. I
Yeah.
was like, oh shit. Like it was like that the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget when I noticed it, but I like that they did that for the set piece. Now, do you think that's something we'll see continue, or do you think that's like Favreau had the pull and he was like, I want the IMAX cameras for my episode or something? Like, what do you think?
We're
What
gonna
do you
see
think
that
we've done?
continue. We're
Mhm.
seeing that continue for sure. That's not something that like they would only do for like just Jon Favreau. Like I think I don't know. I feel like they would definitely sort of invest in that sort of technology for these types of scenes. No one's saying that you have to, film the entire episode of The Mandalorian on IMAX. No one's saying that that has to happen. Nobody wants that to happen. Honestly, it would be a bit overkill. But for these scenes that are like super intense, very action packed, lots of details happening, lots of characters, it makes sense to like want to film that sort of thing in the best quality that you can.
Mhm.
And it's funny that you say that you didn't notice the aspect ratio change, because I went back like after the fact and like tried to pinpoint the moment when that happens,
Mhm.
and it's a shot where like all the Tusken Raiders are running back, and the Crate Dragon's like coming at them, but there's like some black at the top of the screen.
Mhm.
And as the Tusken Raiders are coming back, like the screen changes, but like you can't see it because of like the shadows behind
Nice.
the Crate Dragon. It was very cool. But if you have a sharp eye, you can kind of like notice those sort of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well
Yeah,
done.
very very well done, very well done.
And yeah, this entire set piece, again, I liked. Like it was simple, but it was really entertaining to watch. And
So
the Crate Dragon's new to me, so
yeah, no. So something about the set piece, and this is what I want to talk about. Knights of the Old Republic really quick. Is that in Knights of the Old Republic, one of the things that you do, so basically you are trying to find these things called star maps, and basically you go to planet to find like a star map on each of the planets. Eventually you go to Tatooine, where you have to kill a crate dragon. And so basically this crate dragon in the game is in this cave, right?
Mhm.
Similar to the Mandalorian, where the crate dragon is in this like empty Sarlacc pit, correct?
Mhm.
And yeah, it's really interesting because that it just seemed like a carbon copy from the game. Like
Yeah.
here's the Mandalorian and Cobb Vanth and the Tusken Raiders like fighting this crate dragon in this like on Tatooine in this cave. And that's exactly what happened in the game. I believe in the game you can also team up with the Tusken Raiders.
That's cool.
Not something I did. But yeah, so basically in the game you kill it by exploding it, like using explosives, to sort of like get its underside.
Nice.
And inside the cave is a star map that it's like protecting essentially. Not really spoiling anything.
Mhm.
And inside the carcass of the dead crate dragon in the game is a pearl, or whatever the Tusken Raiders find at the end of this episode.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's something from Knights of the Republic, when the Tusken Raider like took the pearl out of
Yeah.
and like held it over his head. I was like, there it is. So yeah, that's my Knights of the Old Republic sort of crossover here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There was another thing I saw too, because I saw a ton of people posting stuff, just like little references, more than I saw, I think, in season 1. So there was a lot in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really cool. That was the notable one. I also saw. This was probably just a fun little thing, because like Jon Favreau directed both these things, but there's that iconic shot from the first Iron Man movie where like he shoots the tank, then he turns around, walks away, then it's like Iron Man on the right side, the tank blowing up on the other side.
Yeah.
There's a shot that's framed similarly.
With like AC/DC in the background. Yeah.
There's a shot that's framed similarly. It's when Cobb Vanth is at the end of his narration with the miner organization, where he like leans forward with Boba Fett's jetpack, shoots the rocket out, and then explodes it. Like it's framed similarly. So I thought that was neat.
That is neat.
But in the wrap up, when we're fighting the Great Dragon, I really did like. Again, it just looked so fresh for Star Wars. Like seeing these two fighters like using their jetpacks to like maneuver around this giant creature like that. I feel like we haven't seen that in a Star Wars thing before. Like Iron Man, we've seen that a ton, like fighting space whales or whatever. But like in this universe on this planet, that seems super cool. Very fresh.
Agreed. It just felt like Star Wars to me. Like I was just on the edge of my seat the entire time. Just like, oh wow, like this is so like cool and like different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. It just made me feel like a kid again.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And I think what you said at the beginning of our talk today is like exactly the right way to say it. Like, it was a good mix of nostalgia and new, because it did feel very fresh in a place that's been beaten to death. You know, how many times we've seen Tatooine, but yeah, I think it came back great. I think it was a really, really good episode. Feels like we didn't skip a beat. Feels like we're just picking up right where we left off. But I will say I've seen some people upset or let down or disappointed because of that. The fact that, like, it's not a traditional coming out strong, grand slam, super high stakes episode 1 of a new season. And they don't, to be fair, they don't frame it that way. Like, it's not season 2, episode 1, it's chapter 9. So, like, for you, diving back in, was the fact that this was basically a more action-y chapter 4 a deterrent, like it was for some people, or were you happy about that?
No, I was really happy with it, honestly. I think it was the best episode of The Mandalorian so far, in my opinion. I thought it had a good balance between action-y and like character development. And I don't need every episode of The Mandalorian to be like high stakes, like, oh no, like, you know, the child's gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't need to happen every time. I can watch The Mandalorian blow up a crate dragon for an episode and it's fine. Like, that's what we want. Like, you know, I would disagree. I would think that it does move the story along in some way. And I think it introduces really cool characters, and it only furthers the ones that we've seen already. I think it was a great episode. I had no problems with it.
Yeah, I co-sign everything. Like, we're obviously, the consequences of this episode will pay off. You know, there will be, okay, we were looking for a Mandalorian. We tried to find one. Turns out we didn't. We had to do this thing instead. Next week, okay, we're probably still looking for another Mandalorian. Maybe that's when Sabine comes in.
Dude, yeah.
Or maybe this puts us on that path in the next few episodes to find her. But, like, yeah, I thought it was really strong. And I'm glad that they're continuing with that experience of, we want it to feel like it's one thing, not like, this isn't like how Stranger Things Season 2 was like Stranger Things 2. This isn't The Mandalorian 2. This is The Mandalorian Chapter 9, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like, to be fair, this is Chapter 9. It's not, you know, it's not Season 2, Episode 1. It's not supposed to set up anything. It's just a continuation of the story that left off. And, like everything, and like even just life, like, you know, it's not everything's going to be like super interesting and high stakes all the time. Like, it's just what the Mandalorian did after Navarro. Like, you know what? Like, he had a little bit of a setback, and that's what you had. That's what you got to watch. Let's wait till next episode, see what happens. Like,
and if we
there are more episodes coming. Like,
and like, from my perspective, again, as somebody who really liked episode 4, and I liked the heist episode a lot too last season. Like, if we get more episodes like this, I'm fine with that. Like, I think if we hit story beats, like, if we hit a major story beat thing, like at least 3 or 4 times this season, that's fine. I'm fine with everything else being the same framing of this, because we're still moving, you know? Like, every week we're doing something, you know? It's like, we're not hanging on anything too long. So if it's not something you're super in love with plot wise, it's like, okay, you're still getting some content. Next week it will be a different plot. So
and it's one of those things that, like, you know, this episode, for instance, like, it's not like we didn't go anywhere. We did. It's just there wasn't as much of an emphasis on it, which is not a bad thing.
So I think it's worth saying ahead of time, because I know with season 1 it was a lot of we're getting back to that like Empire Doctor anytime soon. Like, I think with the hindsight of that, seeing this episode, seeing how strong this episode was without really touching on anything like that for progressing the mystery of this show, be prepared for more of that this season. We will, at least, I can guarantee you, we'll have at least one episode that gets into the greater mythos of everything. But, like,
Yeah.
be prepared for more like this, I think.
I mean, I think that's like one of the things that kind of caught me off guard with season one. I didn't expect a lot of episodes to be sort of like not as heavy on the plot.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I expected. But going into season two, I know what season one was like, and so I feel like I'm a little bit more prepared for that.
Nice. That being said, they drop Boba Fett on you at the end, like actual Boba Fett.
Yeah,
presumably.
like literally Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Here's the thing though, like everybody's saying it's Boba Fett, and like it's like 99% a chance that it's Boba Fett.
Let me ask you, because the thing is, when we saw it at the end, obviously it was a Boba Fett heavy episode with the armor and everything like that. But when we saw Tamar Morrison, I was like, Rex, or is it actually Boba Fett?
Right, that's what I thought too. I was like, it could theoretically be any of the clones.
Yeah. So like, do you have you're putting your chips on something specifically? Like, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Boba Fett for a few reasons.
Okay.
I watched a few things about this. This is not completely like my own thoughts here, but like the way like his age seems like his age seems right.
Yeah.
We know that from episode 2 that as part of like giving his DNA to the Kaminoans or whatever to make the clones for the Galactic Republic, Jango asked for a copy of himself to be made with no genetic like alterations. So no like aging, because we know that the clones like aged faster than normal humans.
Yeah.
So we know that Boba Fett is a clone of Jango, sure, but doesn't have like the sort of aging thing that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it seem like, this is probably like, the age seems right. Like he looks like, he's in his 40s or 50s, which would make sense if you think about the timeline of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also the fact that he's on Tatooine, like, come on.
Yeah. I think that's a fair bet. And as for as much trash talk that we've done in this show and even in this episode about Boba Fett being a chump, they could very well make Boba Fett cool. They could. I believe in them,
I believe in them too. I guess I was watching a thing and some guy said that there was a scene where the Mandalorian is like talking by campfire with some Tusken Raiders. And there's like one Tusken Raider to the left of the screen that's sort of like sitting away from all of them but still listening.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that one person thought that perhaps because we do see Boba Fett with like a gaffy stick right at the end, that maybe he's been hiding within the Tusken Raiders. What do you think about that?
That is a good theory, because I did notice that he had the staff. I was like, oh hey, that's the Raider staff. That's an interesting theory. And you presume too, because on that final shot when we get the reveal of Tamar Morrison, like he's looking at Mando driving on the speeder, and the last thing we saw him do was put the Boba Fett armor nicely on the speeder, so like
yeah,
I think it's clear that he's looking for that, right, and I think that lends the idea that it is Boba Fett. Honestly, for like a good chunk of the episode, especially after like Mando started trusting the Marshal more, I thought we were going to get a moment towards the end where it was like the person this armor belonged to actually was not a true Mandalorian, and he stole it from the Mandalorians, and that's how it ended up in his hands. He's a disgrace to the people. You, in your efforts, have done so much more to live close to our code than the original owner did, so I gift it to you.
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing, like, Jango Fett, like, was he even like a Mandalorian?
I don't think so. I think he was, and then he like left.
I think he was like from one of the planets, right? And then like they had some falling out or something like that. Yeah, I'm not well versed in the Jango lore.
I'm not either, but I'm pretty sure that he's not like a true Mandalorian. I think like he left, and then because like obviously in episode 2. He's taking that helmet off all the time, like he doesn't live by that code. So
yeah, right, exactly.
I honestly, I did think that we were going to reach a point where it was like, you know what, keep it. Like you earned it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's not happening.
I mean, yeah, but the Mandalorian doesn't know yet that that's not really a Mandalorian's armor, but
Mhm.
sure looks like it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious. What do you think? What do you think? Like Django, if it is indeed Django, which we're pretty positive it is.
You mean
I
Boba?
mean, yeah, Boba.
Yeah.
My apologies. We're pretty positive that it's Boba Fett, but
Yeah.
I guess it could be one of the other clones, though it wouldn't really make any sense.
Mhm.
What do you think Boba's role is in the rest of the season?
Here's the
Assuming
bet.
that it is Boba.
You know what? I think maybe next week or the next episode. Because the thing is, we never saw Mando reunite with the child at the hangar, right? So I think next episode we're still on Tatooine. I think it's Boba Fett being like, "Hey, that armor's mine." They have a talk because he's like, "Oh, you're the Mandalorian that I'm looking for. How do I find his people?" And he's like, "Man, I don't know." Like,
Yeah,
I think we get that
I'm
again.
not a Mandalorian.
No, I think we get that again. I think next week we get the Boba Fett episode, and I think it's like similar to what happened this week, kind of like a fake out from Din Djarin's perspective. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, so what do you need? And then, like, I think we get those like 2 strikes, and then episode 3 maybe is when Sabine comes in. It's like, hey, I know a Jedi. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think Sabine's gonna be like the Mandalorian that he finds.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I guess like the next question is: do you think the relationship between Boba and the Mandalorian is going to be one of like mutuality and like that they're trying to help one another, or do you think it's going to be like combative and divisive in the sense that like maybe the Mandalorians like finds out that Boba actually isn't a Mandalorian, right? Like, do you think they're going to work together, or do you think it's going to be more?
I think it's going to be like an uneasy team up.
Okay.
Like, similar to like the Bill Burr character in Mando, Like,
Okay.
I think it's going to be unstable. I think he's going to be... I think Boba Fett might be a little judgmental of him, like seeing him care for a baby or something, and he's like, oh, he's soft, or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the attitude we get around it. What about you?
I mean, yeah, I think that they're going to have... Maybe they have some sort of... Maybe like with Cobb Vanth, like... they have this like altercation that almost blows up right in the beginning, but then they have to come together and like do something together.
Mm-hmm.
That's like seems like the likely recipe for some of these things.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. Do you think we get the resolution to the Boba Fett stuff next week, or do you think that's like later in the season?
Honestly, I think we're gonna get it next week.
Yeah, me too.
I think like before the Mandalorian leaves Tatooine, they're gonna have some sort of confrontation.
Yeah, agreed. But
we'll have to see. I'm so excited, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready. I'm probably gonna watch this episode again at some point this week before the new one drops. But I am so glad the show's back.
Yeah, I honestly just might watch it tonight. It was really great.
It is not a bad idea. But until the next episode and until we break it down next Monday, Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at Chris N. Buckley. This show is available on youtube.com/joyclicks if you're watching the premiere or the video version. We got a bunch of other shows on the platform as well. If you're curious about anything involving Marvel or games, check those out. But this podcast is also available on audio versions like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you can rate or review on the platform of your choosing, it would be greatly appreciated if you do. Just takes a second to hit 5 stars if you enjoy the show. We also have a Patreon. Patreon.com/joyclicks is where you can get involved with the channel further in terms of content and getting producer credit on all of our podcasts like Chris Sakas and Aaron Easton do. So thank you very much. And I think that's it.
I think so. Until next week when we have another episode of The Mandalorian to discuss.
Yeah, this is the way. Should we leave off with that now?
I think we should.
All right.
You should say this is the way, and I'll say the way the Force be with you.
All right. So until next week, this is the way.
May the Force be with you.
Hello there. This is where the fun begins.
General Kenobi.